You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Totemly Drunk, and tonight on episode 170, we'll be discussing Overwatch League laying the groundwork for fantasy options in the future. We'll let you know what's new for Overwatch League Stage 4, and of course, there's a lot of shenanigans going on the PTR. We've got balance changes, we got a new hero, we got role queue. There is a lot to dive into tonight. A lot of exciting things happening across the board, whether it is in-game, in esports, competitive, all of the above. There's so much happening all at one time, and it's been a whirlwind of a week, which we'll definitely be getting into. But before we can jump into the news and introduce you to my co-host, let me just quickly take a moment to thank everyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch for our live show, and thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Edinar. And Ed, man, it's been a pretty crazy week. So we basically went from a week where we had a lot going on, where we recorded for like 2 hours and like 56 minutes, to having the 222 roll lock getting leaked a day early because it was supposed to get announced on Watchpoint, and I know you were tuning into Bren's stream as that whole ordeal was going on after the fact, but like that leak kind of happened during our recording that we didn't know, so I can almost guarantee, had we realized, we definitely would have hit that 3-hour mark. But we have a lot to talk about tonight nonetheless. But how has this whirlwind of a week been treating you, my friend?
It's been good. It was crazy last week that we almost went 3 hours. And we probably would have gone 4 if the 222 stuff, if we would have caught on to that. We'll easily have a nice other long episode for you guys, but it's been crazy. Like, we went forever without like getting any information. Then all of a sudden, in the matter of 7 days, we have 4 developer updates, 2 different patches dropped, massive changes to the game, huge changes to Overwatch League outside of Roll-Lock. Like, they just were like, here's everything.
Right.
All at once.
Yeah, they opened the floodgates.
But, it's been good. I was spent the weekend with the family out on a lake, grilling out. It was a fun weekend. Got some WoW in, streamed a little bit on Friday, the new Eternal Palace, the new raid in WoW. So that was fun. Thank you for those who stopped by. I noticed one of them was not Totem.
No, but, I did not make it out.
but Spider was there, and Kesha, and some other people showed up. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. How's your week been?
It's been pretty busy. I've actually been on the PTR a lot, like more so
That's
than
all
usual.
Anyone's on.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I did obviously we'll talk about everything on the PTR, but I did do all of my placements on PTR, which we'll talk about later on tonight. Some interesting games. It was definitely an experience. Some placements were an absolute crapshoot, others were a lot better, so it's kind of like a mixed bag in that regard, but it is a PTR, so I didn't expect too much on that front. But across the board, it's been a crazy week. There's just been so much happening and so much to kind of dive into, and there's like so much uncertainty about like what we're supposed to be seeing come Stage 4 in the Overwatch League. It's very exciting having to see like all of these pro players having to adjust, or just like revert back to their old selves in different metas. So there's going to be a lot of shakeups happening, both in competitive, on ladder, just in general Overwatch, and I cannot wait to see how everything is going to go down. Now that being said, guys, because there is kind of been, like, there's so much happening, we are going to freeform this episode a bit more than what you're used to seeing, so rather than, like, just jumping into news right off the bat, let's talk about something that's been going on with Twitch as of late. We've actually seen a pretty big boost in Twitch viewership for the game as of late, and part of that is definitely the excitement around some of the announcements that we got this week that is looking pretty good for the future state of the game. And what also has helped is the fact that we have had one of the best FPS players in the world in Shroud actually streaming Overwatch here lately. I know he was streaming pretty late. I stayed up till like 2 o'clock in the morning this morning watching him playing competitive. And he basically, he leveled up to 25 and then he proceeded to jump directly into rank play. Now, Shroud did finish his placements and he ended up placing in Plat with a 2589 skill rating. And for the most part, he's been sticking with hit-skin heroes in his games. I know he seems to prefer Ashe and McCree, but I have seen him play a lot of Widowmaker and a ton of Soldier 76 as well. And it's important to note, Shroud is a huge name in the FPS genre, and he has kind of dove into other titles in the past, but there haven't really been that many that have been able to hold down his interest in regards to longevity. So I'm really anxious to see whether or not Shroud's going to continue to play, but he seems to be enjoying himself, despite the typical ranked motto of sometimes it sucks, but I want to keep playing. It's keeping his interest, which is nice to see.
Yeah, presently he's actually streaming Overwatch as we speak for 27,000 people. It's been kind of crazy. You've seen this resurgence in Overwatch streaming, and then not just Shroud. Today, Tim the Tatman was streaming it, and he said he's going to be coming back because it's this 2-2-2 roadblock. That is what is bringing people back. Now they're just things are going to be hopefully less toxic on the ranked ladder. So no matter what character you're on, I think people kind of realize no matter what character you're on and what rank you're at, now it doesn't matter. You have other people saying, "Oh, well, you're on a boosted character." No, I have a specific role that I'm playing, and this is my SR for this role. So it's not me. It's you're just that. If you're complaining, you're at the same SR as I am for what role you're playing. So I think that will reduce a little bit of the toxicity, and that's why you're getting Tim the Tatman back. That's why Shroud picked up Overwatch for the first time. He said the last time he played was when Anna first came out.
Oh, so that's a huge jump there.
Yeah, so that's the last time he played the game. So it's just funny. It's you see him play and you watched him play, and then all of a sudden you're just like, oh yeah, no, you're way past the skill level of the people you're playing with right now.
Yeah, but it was really cool just seeing someone that's pretty much brand new to the game jumping in. Someone that has very high mechanical skill, but the game knowledge isn't quite there. So it's kind of like a balancing act to see how far, that mechanical skill can carry him.
Oh yeah, his Tracer is a carry hero. He just needed to learn the awareness of the maps and stuff, and then once he did that, they were just wrecking. So yeah, he's real good at the Overwatch.
Yeah, he quickly
check him out.
He quickly learned how to place Bob after he played on Kane's Row, and then he proceeded to run straight off the map.
Yeah. Yep. And then I think I've seen him play Genji. I've basically seen him on every DPS character at this point. He refuses to play Soldier because he's just so goddamn boring. And they asked him on stream, well, what do you think of the new character? He's looks like the most boring character in the game. Okay then. Good on Shroud. So, yeah, definitely go check him out. He plays mostly at night, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the really big streamers stream during the day. So, yep, go check it out for sure.
So let's go ahead and talk about what's been going on with the Overwatch League here as of late. I know last week we talked about the bulk of the roster shifts. We had kind of the trade between the Fusion and the Charge. The Charge also picked up Bishu, and then after our recording, I think just a day or two after, we had the LA Valiant trading Izayaki over to the Shanghai Dragons. So this basically kind of continues the Valiant's move to a Western loaded front. Obviously, they still have Kariv who I think at this point is, I think, the only Korean player on that roster at this point. But
I think so, yeah.
you basically have Shanghai Dragons picking up another flex support. And I know there's been a lot of discussion about like who's gonna get the nod. Is Izayaki gonna come in and start to play over Luffy? I don't know if that's gonna be the case. I think you can definitely make the argument that Izayaki might have the better Zenyatta between the two players, so they might just switch in and out based on whether or not they're gonna play Ana or Zenyatta on that particular point. But for Izayaki, he basically like lost the starting position after they ended up splitting time between him and Karif eventually got the nod for the LA Valiant, and there's definitely been some positioning issues with Izayaki in the past, but he's still a young player, he's very coachable, so this does kind of look like a more like long-term investment for the Shanghai Dragons, but are you expecting him to come in and get some playtime in this upcoming stage?
He could. He's the better Zenyatta player over Luffy. Luffy's better at all the other flex supports that we've seen that both play. So if they have Zenyatta specific like maps that they run, we may see Izayaki. We may. Although I'm thinking more likely he's not going to. But like you said, he's just still very young. He has his ceiling is super high for support play. He just needs to be coached up.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Goes back, plays with some old teammates of his, and he's going to learn to play support, get coached up a little. It's great depth for Shanghai Dragons. Like, the more I think of it, this was actually kind of stupid of the Valiant. Just because now they have no backup support players on that team. So it's Karif and Costa and nobody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe you could. I don't even know. You're just like KSF. You're back on brick. Like,
which would be awful in 2-2-2.
Exactly. So, but yeah, no, it's a good trade. It's funny because everyone was so high on Izayaki after the first like stage, fantasy wise even.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, like everyone's like, "Yep, screw Izayaki. We have Karif now." And you know, Lord help us if they have to not run Ana, because Karif, Ana, other healers.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but no, I don't truly expect Izayaki to play.
Well, I feel like a lot of that too, at least with the Valiant flex support situation, was Karif basically came in and he was getting early pickoffs, so it led to a lot of early 6v5s in favor of the Valiant. But you know, Izayaki was also in for that winless stage, so there was also that. So it was a little bit all over the place in regards to consistency, but Karif, for the most part, between the two, ended up being the better option and played more consistently over Izayaki, and that's just what they ended up sticking with. And, you know, we have seen kind of like a resurgence from the Valiant ever since that point. Now, moving on, we actually got a couple of intriguing updates from the Overwatch League that are kind of hinting at Fantasy Overwatch League happening sometime down the line, potentially in 2020. So they basically came out and they introduced this new feature that is, it's not like quite trivia. I think it's basically like you're gonna fill out like who you think is gonna do, like who's gonna get like the most eliminations based on a map or a game, or like doing like pick'ems and things like that. So they have league picks coming in. And they're going to have, like, challenges where you're looking to correctly make predictions about the Overwatch League matches that are going to be happening. So they got a beta that's going to be running starting this week. So basically you got to go to overwatchleague.com an hour before the live broadcast starts. If you're on Twitch, you can find it at the top of the page. I'm pretty sure you can access it on mobile as well. So you basically need to log into your Battle.net account. There's going to be a tab to make your picks, and each match you're basically going to have a series of questions, and you're going to look to make predictions for them. So it's not like a multiple choice thing. It's basically, you know, you're filling it in, and I'm pretty sure Reinforce was the one who kind of overlooked all the questions. He wasn't like making them, but like they kind of ran through him for some of this stuff. And you're able to change or submit your answers up to 2 minutes after the start of each map. Now, these questions are either going to be match or map specific, and it'll be based on the team's playing rosters, and it's worth noting, like, they are going to add more questions for upcoming matches about an hour before the match start, and they're going to be alerting you and notifying you whenever there's, like, new questions added. So each correct answer you have will go towards the completion of these challenges, and, you know, you'll have a tab there to kind of, like, track your progress, and then each challenge will reward you with 25 additional Overwatch League tokens. Now, I know there's also, like, a couple other things, like, they have, like, match alerts for calendar functionality with, like, Google and Yahoo, and it's going to be basically running throughout the rest of the season all the way through the grand finals. But it does kind of, like, make you wonder, Ed, is this a sign that this is, like, our first foray into League Pick'ems at this point?
I think it is to some degree. I think they want to do something a little different than just regular old Pick'ems. Because on something that grand of a scale, it kind of dies out a little. You know, you don't see football pick'ems wildly popular everywhere. Like, your fantasy, football popular, but you don't have pick'ems.
Well, I feel like
popular.
With football, it's more confidence pools in that regard.
Yeah, I get that. And, you can't really do confident pools, I think, in this setting.
Yeah, that would be weird, because it's like, what would you do? Like, base it off of, like, what the score would be? Like, how many map objectives you get as a secondary? Like,
yeah.
Who knows?
So, I think this is their way of implementing pick'ems along with something else to keep people's interest.
Mm-hmm.
And you can have leaderboards, you can have stuff like that. They can really spice this up. So, obviously I would be at the top of all time.
Of one.
They would just have to rename it to Etnar's Big Board of Awesomeness. And that would be the name of the leaderboard. So, I mean, this is really cool. I do have some trepidations about next year when they're off-site.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not off-site, in the different sites. Because if they're only releasing it an hour before the matches start, I'm not waking up at 2-3 in the morning to put in my stuff for, the Shanghai Dragons match. I could see them doing something like 24 hours
Mm-hmm.
beforehand. That way you can at least get some. I'm fine with releasing more closer to the match, but if you have an initial set of questions or pick'ems 24 hours before the matches so everyone can get involved, that would be smart of them to do. So we'll see. We will know for sure tomorrow at 5:30 Central, 6:30 Eastern. I think that's when the crappy game starts.
Well, the matches start at
6
6 hour time.
Yeah, 6 Central. So 7 o'clock Eastern, all that fun stuff. So 5 o'clock Central we'll be able to go on there and test this stuff out.
And we'll see how wrong you are.
I don't know. I'm kind of a big deal. Not gonna lie.
Maybe in your headspace.
Yes. Do we have to go through this again? This is not a webcam. This is actually, satellite from outer space. My head is just that big. Because I'm that big brain that's smart.
So, not only do we have this new system, but there was something new added in regards to, like, a Raiden system for players that Captain Planet had dropped earlier this afternoon. So it's a way for him to rate players in the Overwatch League based on impact points, which are generated through these team fights. So basically the way that this works is it's all kind of, like, centered around final blows, and it, like, includes, like, raw damage and healing, CC abilities, like, hacks, hooks, things like that, and teamfight win and plays, like when you negate an ultimate, whether it's, D.Va doing something, like, eating a Graviton Surge, for example, or, boosting up to, just consume a Pharah, all that good stuff. And right now the stats are based by each hero to an equilibrium of 100 impact points per minute for these team fights. And it's kind of like average out across the last 5 patches that were played within the Overwatch League. Now, in order to be eligible to get ranked, they have it where you need to be playing at least 60% of the minimum maps within that time range, so the past 5 patches in the league. And they kind of like broke down the top 5 in PIR for 2018, and then they also had the current top 5 for 2019. So looking back at the inaugural season, looking at the top 5, you have Jonak leading the charge, league MVP, really no surprise there. And then you also had Gesture, Prophet, Fisher, and Space rounding out the top 5. And then going into the current season, at least through the first 3 stages, we have Hoxel on top, followed by 2 other Titans players. So you got Solomon Sue in Twilight, and then you have Sinatra in 4th, with Animo in 5th place. So, I'm not too surprised to see Titans on top, just because when you look at this team, they do have the highest map win percentage across the regular season at 81%. I think the only other team that's, really close to them would be the New York Excelsior, who were, hovering around, 75%. So, pretty interesting that Animo is the only NYXL player to make that cutoff, but it does kind of, make you wonder what something like this is going to lead towards, because there's a possibility that this might also factor into fantasy options as well.
I mean, it could. This is something that, if you're familiar with baseball at all, and maybe baseball fans out there, you are very aware of this type of scenario in WAR. So WAR in baseball is wins above replacement, and it basically starts with a factor of 100, 1.00. And, it raises it on how likely you are to, basically, your team's likelihood of winning when you're in the game. So, yeah, this is essentially the same thing. Now, one of the drawbacks, from a fantasy perspective, WAR in baseball is not the best stat to use, because they use defensive stats. These what the Overwatch League is using, is kind of does the same thing. It doesn't use just the fantasy scores out there. Because, I mean, you can look at it just from the, fantasy wise, at the top 5 from this year. Animo is not a top 5 DPS. Animo is not even a top 5 support, fantasy player. Animo is just not out there, but he's vital to his team. So they don't truly coordinate. It can give you a rough estimate, but what this means is they're putting more into the stats of the game and making it more public to everyone. This is a giant first step into fantasy, because they're starting to think of the stats that they're pumping out the players are in an analytical way, which is exactly what fantasy is. So hopefully this is just the start, and then they'll announce Fantasy Overwatch for Season 3, which would be amazing. And they have more than the top 5. They have all 117 eligible players, because they had you have to play in at least 60% of your team's matches or something like that. And a lot of it is pretty, the best teams have the top players. The bottom is littered with Justice and Mayhem players. No huge surprise there. The one that is surprising to me, and I know I rail on them a lot, is the Outlaws. Because, all right, when you think of it, the Outlaws, they have two top 30 players, and Linkser and Muma. Rightfully so. Those are the 2 best players on that team. And then you have, 2 of the, bottom 25 players. And that's Jake and Raucus. And Boink. So I forgot Boink was down there too. So it's that is probably the most drastic of the split of the start that I saw from all of this. It's like you have Linkser, you have Muma, who are really good, but then they're being brought down by these other 3 players. And if this stuff is to be believed, these are the analytics that teams are going to look at. Be like, okay, well, we have in Raucus, we have, one of the 3 worst flex supports in the league. We have one of the 2 or 3 worst main supports in the league. I don't know what you would actually classify Jake as. So, another one that was kind of surprising to me through all this is Boston. Like, and I know Boston is not bottom, not great, but they're not bottom 3. I don't really think. But, man, their entire roster is at the bottom. That was kind of surprising to me. I think their best one was Fusion at 88. So yeah, that's real bad. And you can even look at it, they broke RCK down in between his Dallas field time and his Boston Uprising. Dallas is at 103.63. Good enough for top 50. Boston Uprising, 89.8.
Oof.
Right? That is the kind of swings where it's just like, oh my God, this team, I hate you. So, yeah, they don't have one player that is above the medium of 100.
I'd be curious to see whether or not they're going to incorporate PIR with the next set for Upper Deck.
They could. They definitely could. Yeah, the whole Upper Deck. Kesha in chat's asking Aim God. Sorry, I was wrong. Aim God is actually their highest at 99.6. Still below, the 100 mark. So, yeah. It's just, you see these kinds of things. And, it stands out to you. So, I love this. Keep this up. Love every minute of it. The fact that the number 1 player, and Captain Planet even goes on to talk about this, is Haxel is the number 1 player as Baguette.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not even surprised with the amount of impact he's had.
I'm a little surprised because I expected Zarya. I expected Xiuminsu and Sinatra to be 1 and 2 when I first saw this. Now, granted, they're 2 and 4, so it's not like they're doing that bad. But we only had, what was it? 2 of the top 10 were Zarya players, which surprised me. So, yeah, Marvel being up there, top 15, was also a little bit surprising. So, yeah, definitely go check this out. It's hopefully the first in the long line of more stats we get thrown in our direction.
Right, and even through the course of the season too, Captain Planet has been focusing a lot on the team fight aspects, and this was kind of an evolution of some of his past work that he has done with the stats. Now that being said, we do have Stage 4 news that we need to talk about, and of course, as we mentioned, it was basically hinted at the end of the One Watch Point for the Stage playoffs that 2-2-2 was going to happen. Sure enough, as we mentioned, it got leaked a day early. So it was actually during our recording last week, but it was officially announced on Watchpoint this past Thursday, and they had a whole article, kind of on the main Overwatch site as well, because it is coming to the game as well. But 2-2-2 starts this week in the Overwatch League, so all team comps are going to consist of 2 damage heroes, 2 tank heroes, and then 2 support heroes. And of course, we'll see it in the league before it comes to the game, but if you want to test out Rollock, you can do so right now on the PTR, which I highly recommend everyone does. So, a couple of things about this. For one, the seeding on stage is going to change based on role. So it'll go left to right, you'll have your damage players, your tank players in the middle, and then your support players on the far right. And then let's use an example of, let's say Dante decides to swap off of DPS to go play Roadhog for the Outlaws. He would have to switch seats, if that's the case. So if you change your role, you gotta move your seat. And what's been interesting about this is a lot of people just don't quite get it, like why they would need to do that. But a lot of people don't realize how easy it is for someone to, like, switch out their gear and go to another computer, because all of them have, like, player IDs. So it's an easy swap. It takes, like, within 90 seconds, you can get set up for the substitutions.
You know what's easier? Not moving computers. Like, I mean, I guess I don't get why. Like, what does the team game by, instead of going tank support support?
It's not about
tank support.
Okay, Ed.
Support.
It's not about the team. It's about observing. It has nothing to do with the actual team.
I don't know.
Because it makes it a lot easier for the observers, not just in-game observers, to switch their point of view, knowing that it's a specific way that they're doing this, but it also helps with the viewers on stage, or the viewers that are watching there in the arena as well. Same like if you're going to do your own observing. It's primarily built for that purpose, just to make it easy navigation. So it's going to be streamlined across the board, as opposed to it just kind of being all willy-nilly, which kind of was the case, because there were only a couple of teams out there that were kind of already using this seed-in priority in the past. So you had teams like The Charge, Fusion, Shock, and Eternal, all sitting at above 75% usage here in the past, but there's other teams who just hadn't used it at all, so I don't think it's going to be like a major change for the teams in any regard. But
yeah, I don't think the teams really care.
It's primarily just for observing more than anything else. Now that being said, with 2.2.2, teams were informed of the change back in early June, which is not too surprising based on the amount of experimentation we got to see in Stage 3. Some teams didn't quite bring out to like the Stage Plus, but other teams were kind of practicing it for the majority of it, or even just running 3 DPS. But we got a couple of things where, like, we know the season playoffs are starting on August 30th. We're gonna have a new patch at that point, which is the one that's currently on the PTR. The one, not the brand new PTR patch, not with the new hero. I would assume, but who knows?
Well, I mean,
I think it would be really weird for them to just throw him in for the season playoffs. We don't know for sure yet, though, and that's the biggest question mark. So there's a chance Sigma will be in. There's a chance it might not be. We don't know yet for sure, but we can expect the balance changes that are currently on the PTR to be patched for the season playoffs. Now, outside of that, we do have our matches of the week. So this week we have Dragons versus the Dynasty. Week 2 we have Reign versus Outlaws. Week 3 we have Fusion Titans. 4 being Spitfire versus Reign. And then we have the Battle of LA for Week 5. During the Kit Kat, Valiant, Homestand, whatever the heck they're calling it, Rivalry Week.
Are we going with Kit Kat?
I don't know.
Different name now.
Who knows? I honestly don't know. They seem to change it like every week. But we got 1v1s happening during Watchpoint, the pre-show, like throughout the stage. I know they announced Gesture versus was it Bird Rain for like a Widow 1v1 for this Friday, so stay tuned for that. We'll see.
I mean, I'm still waiting for the Bren versus the Edomaker 1v1 to happen on stage.
I don't think they're gonna fly out a pleb.
Well, then let's make it on the main stage at BlizzCon when I'm there. I'll already be there. Just saying.
Who knows? But we do have our new map pool for the stage. So we have Ilios, Busan, Lijiang Tower for our control maps, Hanamura, Volskaya, and Anubis for Assault. We got Hollywood, Blizzard World, and Kings Row for hybrid maps, and then Havana, Junkertown, and Route 66 for Escort.
Excuse me.
I was expecting you to just cut in, and you didn't.
On this show, what are the maps again?
There are no rules. They're only unwritten.
Fine. What's the unwritten rule when talking about specific escort maps?
That you have to play Widow on them, which is going to be the case on these 3 maps.
Disappointed. Havana Unana.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like these maps. I am, unlike a lot of people, am a fan of Blizzard World. I like that map. So like all the hybrid maps I like, because I'm a fan of Hollywood, and Kings Row is probably the best map they have in the game. You know, the assault maps, Hanamura is always fun. Volskaya can be a bit of a drag. And Anubis can be just a shit show. All the control ones I'm fine with. I like those. And then the escort maps, Havana, I still don't like Havana. Not from the simple fact of I like Havana. I don't like the first 100 yards of Havana. Unana.
I was saying, like, you're breaking our own rule.
Yeah, no. They're not rules. They're written. They're
unwritten.
It's just like I don't like the first 100 yards of Venom. Like everything else about the map, I love, except for that. So, Junkertown, going to be another fun one. And Route 66 is always kind of a fun map to watch. So we got some good maps coming up out of all this. But I think I'm most excited for Blizzard World. Just because I want to see some cheeky shenanigans. Because that's the kind of map where I think a Symmetra could really shine. So I want to see Symmetra on Blizzard World. Let's make it happen. So, I don't know. Let's see here. The 1v1 duels, outside of Widow 1v1, what 1v1s do you want to see?
Tracer.
Who would it be? Savioli and
Striker. Or Decay.
Okay. Let's see. I actually know a Pharaoh 1v1 would just be horrible to watch.
Or give me like Agilities versus Haxel and Genji.
Ooh. Genji 1v1 would be nice.
But that's the thing, based off of the one that we've had announced, like, we don't know if it's actually going to be specific. These are heroes that they actually play, or whether it's just going to be teammate versus teammate, so. Yeah,
and correct me if I'm wrong, the tweet that they sent out didn't specify it was a Widowmaker. It just said he took on the took on Bren, now he's taking on Birdring. It's implied that it's Widowmaker, but I don't think they said it was Widow.
Well, I mean, they referred to Bren as Widowmaker, so that basically made the assumption.
Can we have any tank 1v1s?
I mean, we already had a tank 1v1, but it was on Doomfist.
No, I get that. But, like, any tank characters. So, like, Ryan 1v1 or Orisa 1v1. You know, could we have anything like that? Maybe something with Hammond? I don't know. This is where they should implement arcade mode. Because, like, imagine a Hammond race. You know what I mean? Or a Lucio race. Or some crap like that. Like, so... But no, it's cool that they're bringing this out. It's a good time filler. So there's less, like, downtime. And so, I enjoy it. Yes. Baby Bay versus Gesture and a swag off. Well, considering Baby Bay, it would be Gesture. Gesture would win the swag off over Baby Bay. All day, every day. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think I'm most looking forward to what kind of meta we end up seeing. Like, the 2-2-2 is obviously the most important part of it. I wish we had a better first match.
Right.
Like, our first match is Houston versus Paris. not what I would really call a barn burner of a match.
Mhm.
I think the most interesting thing is going to be who's DPS.
Right.
Like, are Paris going to stick to Danye and Nico, or are they going to switch back over to Soon and Mr. I hold my blade for 5 hours and not use it?
I'm
Why
waiting to
am I
see
drawing
how
blank?
I want to see how long this is gonna take him.
Oh God!
No one help
Oh.
him. No one help him.
Oh, this is
Is
horrible.
it-
Why are you doing this to me? Oh, see, now it's just going to be dead air.
It's Shadowburn.
Shadowburn. There it is. If they go back to them, and which of the two of the three for Houston is going to get benched? So, because actually, which one of the two is going to get benched for Houston? Because we already know that Jake is going to be in the lineup. Because their owner specifically said he will be in every match for the rest of the season.
If I had to take an educated guess for the Outlaws, I'm expecting Dante to move to off tank to play Roadhog, and then they'll start Linkser and Jake.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. That's a huge thing with the Outlaws, is that they just have no real off tank. So yeah, Dante on the Roadhog does make sense, because Muma and Orisa, pulled pork, definitely a way to go. So yeah, I could see that for sure. And then you get, Junkrat and Widowmaker, whatever the heck they end up playing. So
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because in the past, when it comes to the Roadhog play, this was primarily with these, solo support compositions, where they would have the flex support moving over to play the Roadhog, but there are DPS players out there who have been known to play Roadhog. Kib is definitely one that comes to mind, who is now with Philadelphia Fusion. So there is a situation where we might not even see Poco, where they decide to run Kib on off-tank if they are going to go Orisa Roadhog and go with that double sniper comp with Carpe, playing a Widow and EQO over on the Hanzo. I'm sure there's going to be teams out there that have a DPS player on Roadhog, but you're also going to have teams out there that are just going to run their off-tank on Roadhog, and I'm really curious to see what the breakdown between the teams is going to be in that regard. I want to know if it's primarily going to be the off-tank, or if it's going to be, a DPS player, or potentially even a flex support. Who knows? There are teams that have multiple flex supports that could easily fill in that role as well. The biggest thing is, though, it does kind of make you one-dimensional in a sense, because you're not going to have as much flexibility on that point since you're already playing an off-role in some cases.
Yeah, and one of the other things is, I don't know, especially for Philadelphia's case, with Kib playing Roadhog, there are certain DPS, they have to play to their strengths. And their strength is their DPS, is Carpe and EQO. And Carpe and EQO, Carpe, phenomenal Widow. EQO, phenomenal Hanzo. So the double sniper seems to work out for them. I'm not the biggest fan of pulled pork with two snipers. Just because if they're not close enough, if they miss a shot after they're hooked, whoever the Roadhog hooks can just get away. So I don't know if that's the best case for them. They're probably going to do best at running dive. I think it comes down to dive versus double sniper. Pulled pork combos. That is what I see really happening. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who they have play, the Roadhogs. Because like you said, most of the time it is not the flex tank or the D.Va player who is, playing the Roadhog. And this is the only time that you don't really, we're not used to not having D.Va automatically be in the meta. We don't refer to flex players. I guess the closest you could say is Zenyatta. They're the team's Zenyatta player, but the team's Zenyatta players are also their flex supports. They're going over to Ana, stuff like that. if the diva players for teams aren't on diva, the majority of the times they're just riding the bench because they're diva one tricks. Look at both the diva players for Houston. Look at Space. They're just not playing at all because they're not playing diva. So you have like all these main tanks, flex tanks, off tanks, and all that fun stuff. That's the designation people have, except for diva players. They're just known as diva players. So they may just stick with it and go dive, because they won't have to deal with the nerf coming to diva, I believe. Yeah, the nerf to diva is that live right now, or is that still on the PTR?
The defense matrix change?
Yeah,
it should be live.
It should be live. Okay, so then they would have it for this stage. So maybe, I don't know. Like, we want to make all this speculation, and we just don't know. We could be running into the Torb May meta, and we just don't know it.
Well, I will say this. I would not be surprised to see an increase of May play if we do see a ton of Orisa Hog. Just because you can use the ice walls to block the hooks, and just the amount of control you have is pretty good. Not to mention the fact that May's alt fire does not have any damage fall off. So there's going to be situations when you're going to have, like, the Sniper May return. And there are definitely going to be a couple teams out there that have been known to play May that could really benefit from something like that.
Yeah, it's... I as much as May is the devil, I enjoy watching her play. I really do enjoy watching good May play, because one of the hardest things to do is to place that wall in the perfect spot behind the tank, but in front of everyone else, to block them off. Like, that's one of the hardest things to do in the game. And, to see it done right is a beautiful thing. And let's not forget, Pharah is probably going to be really prevalent. Far Mercy is probably going to be very prevalent in this meta. So it's gonna be interesting to see what people do. You're definitely gonna have teams that skyrocket in value, and you're gonna have teams that plummet in value. So
yeah, we've already kind of talked about who we predict is gonna be up and down a bit this past week. When we basically already knew 2-2 was gonna happen, but now we got official confirmation. I want to get your thoughts though. Going into 2-2, how are you feeling about Hangzhou Spark? Because this has been a team who, primarily for their DPS comps, were running Sombra, but we haven't seen a ton of flexibility being brought in on the DPS front from them specifically, and they heavily relied on the Sombra iteration of, the triple support.
I think they're one of the teams that probably will decline a little. It's, they were one of the, we're going to stick to goats or Sombra goats, or whatever you want to call it, throughout the stage. And it worked out for them for a large portion, but they never really transitioned over to more DPS-focused characters. Not to say that they can't, because Godsby is still very good. We may see Crystal come in. I don't know. They do have the tank lineup to be a really good dive team. They have the dive tanks on lockdown. You have the best Winston probably in Overwatch League. So they have that. It's all a matter of, I don't think they can pull off double sniper. I guess I can't say I don't think they will. It's just we haven't seen them really play snipers. So we don't know how they truly are. But you could see some crazy combinations, They have to pick between Godsby, Adora, and Crystal to play DPS. Godsby, I think, is a given. I don't know about the other two.
Yeah, well,
when you did see them go to DPS, Crystal came in over Adora, and then they flip flop once they want to play through 3. So
yeah, I want to see if this is going to be the stage where they regret moving Bozzy over to their contenders team.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, that is a very real possibility. So it'll be an interesting stage across the board. But I really am curious to see how the Spark are going to perform now that they can't rely on basically like what kind of brought them to the forefront in many regards. Now looking at this week's matches, we do have the game of the week between the Shanghai Dragons versus Seoul Dynasty. The Dragons are another very interesting case, as are really the bulk of the Chinese teams, as they were really counting and relying on these Wrecking Ball compositions, running a triple DPS, so I'm kind of like waiting to really judge the Chinese teams based off of what looks we're gonna get. There's probably a lot to be hesitant about with, trying to do Hunters, just because main hasn't really been flexing off the Wrecking Ball too much. There is a situation where I could see, like, Wrecking Ball dive comps, but, like, even in regards to their off-tank, that's kind of been all over the place, too, because we haven't really seen a ton of off-tank play, and when we have, it's primarily just been from Elsa. But if I'm them, I would heavily rely probably on Jinmu in this case. We'll see if they stick with primarily, like, the Pharah Widow comps, or if they're going to go a different direction. But Shanghai is a team that potentially could have probably the biggest blow to them in this current meta. It's just a matter of how this meta is going to develop and who they're going to run where. Like, I would not be surprised if they have Yunjin coming in to off-tank and play the Roadhog. Because you look at how this team performed, and, I mean, all their DPS are solid. Like, every one of them was popping off when they were running the countdown composition. But I feel like with the amount of space that they're creating, that Widow Pharah DPS duo is probably going to be their bread and butter still moving forward, and I expect to see them continue that throughout Stage 4.
Yeah, the Dragons did take one of the big hits, because obviously they won a stage running essentially triple DPS. So obviously they're going to get hit hard. I think another team that's going to get hit hard that's on the top is the Shock. Just because they went so 3-3 dependent, they are mixing up the roster. Like that's never a good sign. We saw that in the first game against Shanghai when they brought out they had Sinatra, Rascal, and Super on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be definitely interesting. But yeah, like I think we've talked about this previously about the Hunters being like the scapegoat for who's the team that's gonna be hurt the most. Oh, how about the team that's been running triple DPS for the whole season so far? Well, here's the thing: even running triple DPS, they were not that good. They're bottom 10. They're bottom half of the league, and they're just gonna get worse because everyone loved. I said this last night. Everyone loves Jinmu because he played DPS when nobody else was. But now that you actually have other Pharahs going up against him, you see how bad Jinmu actually, not bad, but like
he had fallen off.
How overrated Jinmu was. I think the team needs to do some. We'll see the true Hunters and the skill they have on that team come this stage. But another team I honestly believe is probably going to fall off a little is the Valiant. Because if you think of it, the Valiant really only came around this stage as well. Like stage 3, and that's when they bench space and they brought in triple DPS. You had Shax, you had Agilities, and then you had KSF. And so they were running solo tanks or occasionally off tanks, but the majority of the time they were running triple DPS. And they can't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you have Far Mercy up there, is Kareev's Ana going to be enough to keep a whole team alive? If Far Mercy, if he's great at these sleep darts and clutch plays like that, but is he a truly great healer? And that's what we're going to have to see out of them. So I could see the Valiant definitely taking a step back. But the Dragons, I think, will be the biggest losers in the 2-2-2. Unless Envy comes in and just surprises all of us. and is this amazing off tank. But here's the thing: Envy's also on his third team.
Mm-hmm.
If he was that great, he wouldn't have been on two other teams that kind of didn't want him. To put it simple, like he was on the Valiant, they didn't want him. He went to Defiant. Defiant, they picked up other new players to come in and play. So then they didn't want him, and they sent him off to Shanghai. So, yeah, but Ding and DM are going to be definitely like the all-star TPS duo to look for in Stage 4. I'm excited to see those two play together again.
Yeah, I just want to see them pop off. I want to see Carpe and Ichigo get back to form. I'm expecting good things from the Excelsior. It's just can win when it matters. It's still the biggest question mark. Now I think we're pretty confident that Libero is probably going to be picking up the Hanzo again. But if you're New York, you have a ton of options for the Widowmaker on your team. Who would you start in that situation in double sniper for the NYXL?
Flower. I don't want to start Pine. I don't think Pine is... Choose my words carefully here, because I'm going to annoy people.
I mean,
Pine is flashy.
You were going to do it
Pine
anyway.
is flashy, but not good. Let's just put it that way. Pine is a very flashy player, and he's good in situational spots.
He's
not
flank
a
heavy.
Start. Yeah, he's just... Snipers should not be flanking aggro. Ever. Yes, it makes for some interesting maps and interesting kills, but it's not good for an overall team.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we've seen Sebiobi's Widowmaker before, but I think they kind of had him on Widow out of necessity a lot of the time, because he was already on the map playing as Tracer. So I think, and Nene could. I forgot about him. I don't know. I'm still saying they go with Flower, and yeah. Flower or Nene over Pine or Sebiobi. I think Sebiobi might re-ride the Pine again.
I'm going to disagree with
That
you.
that came out wrong. Oof.
So I think the primary options you're looking at are Nene Libero or SBB Libero. I do feel like Sebiobi is kind of like the glue for NYXL, so he's like their leader, essentially, in comms. So I would fully expect, in that regard, to see SPB paired with Libero, just because, in regards to flexibility for a DPS duo, that probably gives them the most wiggle room. But consistency-wise, I think the better option would still be Nene to pair it with Libero.
Trenchford does bring up a good point in chat. Does it matter who they play if they just suck in the playoffs?
Well, see, you're going to give them an entire stage to hopefully run the same thing into the season playoffs.
And then change it once they get into the playoffs?
Who knows? Maybe this will be the one time they don't.
Sure.
To be fair, it only happened in the last stage, guys. Calm down. That's the only time that they reverted back to something.
Yes. The other times they just lost.
Yeah, the other times they just flat out lost. There's a difference there.
I don't know. All right, so here's another DPS question for you. We know Haxel is playing, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Serum and Suri Stitch. Right? That's hard. Because you're just like... Serum and Sue they're both phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna annoy me and like flip-flop them on like every map, so
Probably.
I can't start either of them.
I'm trying to remember the exact hero pools for both. I would feel better with Stitch, though. I would feel like. I think we've seen more from him as opposed to Soa Minsu, because Soa Minsu primarily relied on Zarya play, and Stitch was kind of like filled in a multitude of roles on DPS. So I really feel like he would have more to offer in this situation, and I really hope Haxel is on Genji a bulk of the time this stage. Like, we want to see die from Titans.
we need him on Genji. When they did the player ratings or whatever, and granted, now it was limited play.
Mm-hmm.
I think the highest was like 128 for like overall, but his Genji was at 141, which is absurd. Just absurd.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with that, but I do think they go with Stitch, because if you do get a Genji player, you are gonna want a hit scan, like a McCree, to go with them. Weird. There's a good McCree. I don't know. Could be Stitch. He's pretty decent at that McCree fella. So I don't know. They're gonna pull something off, and who knows what they're really gonna do. All we can say for sure is that Bumper will die numerous times when he doesn't need to.
He's the distraction tank.
Yes, exactly.
Like he's kind of like the steward. He's gonna be like, "Hey guys, look what I can do." He'll dive in, and then this is when Haksol is gonna come in with the nano blade and just clean up with like a 5K.
Yeah, that's all you need to do. It's nothing, not that big of a deal. Come on.
Just Haksol things. But anyway, so kind of like looking at this week, there are some pretty interesting matches. Like, for instance, on Thursday this week, we have Gladiators going up against New York Excelsior. Charge Fusion could have some pretty interesting storylines. If we get to see, like, Fraggy come out and play immediately against his old team, that could be pretty cool. Dragons Titans we have to close out Thursday, so we kind of got that Stage 3 playoff rematch going on. Also, you got the whole Kondu Panthera versus Runaway storyline continuing off of that, which, in this case, that's pretty much like the rubber match at this point, so that should be pretty interesting. And then we have, like, Shock Dynasty, which has some pretty firework potential. You have the Dynasty versus the Dragons. You have, like, Uprising Hunters is going to be another intrigue in the game, too, when you kind of figure both of these teams are... They're, like, neck and neck in regards to the stand-ins, so a lot of the storylines this stage are going to be revolving around getting to that play-in tournament, and you have a huge clump of teams that are sitting at, like, 7 or 8 wins so far. And it's all about trying to get into that play-in tournament, so... you're looking for that 7th through 12th ranking in regards to the stand-ins, so there's going to be a lot more on the line this stage. I know that there's not a lot of teams in the league right now that are ruled out of the season playoffs, so each week you're going to have probably 5-6 matches minimum that have quite a bit on the line at this point.
Oh yeah, you have that, 9 through 15 range of teams that are really going to kind of have to work their ass off.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I think, all right, when you look at the top 6, Vancouver, New York, Shock, Spark, Gladiators, Dynasty, I think those 6 teams are going to get it no matter. I don't think they're going to tank hard enough that they're going to fall out of any of the possible postseason. And then after that, you have the Spitfire and the Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
I think those 2 teams are probably also locks. Then you start to get into some of these, okay, we need to actually have a really good stage to get in. Like, you're talking Fusion, Fuel, Rain, Chengdu. Oddly enough, the Charge, Valiant, Outlaws, like, that 9 through 15 range
Mm-hmm.
is huge. And some of them have a massive uphill climb. So for instance, like the Houston Outlaws, they're presently in 15th place, but they have a minus 14 map differential.
Right.
Which is huge. Whereas you look at Atlanta Reign, who's 11th, has a 0 map differential. So they tie. Houston still has to win their maps by more than 14 maps. Their matches by more than 14 maps. That's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, those teams are really, like, I'd say Outlaws, Charge, Hunters, Fuel have to do the best.
Right.
Like, those 4 teams are going to probably be competing for 1 spot, maybe 2, when it's all said and done. And yeah, it's kind of all comes down to, you know, what these teams can do against each other.
Right.
The head-to-head matchups are going to mean the most.
I do have my, like, final season stand-ins predictions on hand. So I'm just gonna let you know, like, who I have finishing in the top 6, and I'll go kind of, like, into the play-in tournament. So in top 6, I actually have New York finishing in first at the end of the season with the 26-2 record. I think they're probably... I'm expecting another 7-0 for them. But I have Vancouver Titans finishing in second, Shock in third, Gladiators in fourth, Spitfire in fifth, and I think the Fusion are gonna hold on and finish in top 6. Now, in regards to the play-in tournament, I have Spark, Dragons, Dynasty, Valiant, Uprising, and then I have both of the Texas teams, like, neck and neck, but I'm confident that Outlaws are gonna get the nod over Dallas just based on map differentials.
And that's what it's gonna come down to, is the map differentials. Are gonna probably play I mean, map differentials have always kind of been out there, but they haven't truly been an issue. And this is the first time it's gonna really be an issue where map differentials will come into play, because, you know, you have 3 teams at 11, 12, 13 right now that are 9 and 12. Like, teams are going to be tied, obviously. There's no way we're not going to have ties. And then it goes to map differential. And the teams that are doing really good, like Atlanta Reign, probably needs to win. If they go 3-2, I think they're in the playoffs.
I like how you said 3-2, even though there's 7 games.
Whatever. 4-3. 4-3. God, I don't even know. They could go.
They just took a week off, guys.
They could go 3-4 and still make it in because they have a 0 map differential. All they need to do is tie the Fuel, Hunters, Charge, Outlaws, and they win. They're in. Like, that's all Atlanta needs to do at this point. So I would say Atlanta I'd throw in. I think the odd teams out are going to be Dallas, Chengdu, and the Outlaws. Because I think you're going to... The last 3 spots will probably end up being Atlanta, Valiant... no, the Fuel names... Yeah, no. Atlanta, Valiant, and the Fuel. So Chengdu Charge and Outlaws are out. As much of a good push as the Outlaws did last stage, they're so far behind right now in map differential that it's going to be hard for them to come back. Also, how do you have the Spark out of the top 6?
I expect the DPS to fall off.
Not that much of a DPS fall off. You have no faith in my boys.
I mean, I have them finishing 18 and 10.
So you have them winning 4 matches.
I mean, there are definitely teams this stage that have a really rough schedule. I think Titans probably have the hardest schedule this stage.
Yeah.
It's.
No, I will say though, for them to fall out of the top 6, a team like Seoul or London have to go 6-1, or better, obviously, and then still have a better map differential. Well, Seoul will have a better map differential, but they both have to go 6-1 to just not to. Well, actually, both have to go 6-1 to knock the Spark out of the top 6. So I don't know if that's possible. You might be wrong here. Actually, you're wrong.
I don't know. I'm pretty confident if we see a Orisa Hog that London is definitely a top 3 team in the meta. based on what we've seen last season when they were running those.
Yeah, I can see them being a top 3 team. But it's hard for me to say this team's going to go 6-1 or 7-0 because
Well, that's the thing too. Like, there are teams out there that have lacked inconsistency throughout the season, and London are one of those teams. I'll be honest. Like,
yeah, London is one of those I mean, Fury was on Farah. Let's just get that out there. Also, I'm looking at, London's schedule. I don't want to say it's super easy, but it's super easy.
so you're saying 6-1?
Yeah, they're gonna go 6-1. Like, I was just looking. They could go 7-0. Like, they play the Fuel and the Defiant, the Charge and the Mayhem,
Okay.
the Titans and the Outlaws, then the Reign.
That seems
Yeah,
very
they're
likely
going
5-2, 6-1.
or yeah, I was gonna go 6-1 or 7-0. So, well, let's hope they lose 2. I want the spark in that top 6.
Could happen.
So, it will happen. Oh, it will. Now I just have to.
Are you going to try to will it into existence?
Well, see, here's the thing that you're forcing me to do. You're forcing me to cheer against the Seoul Dynasty. And I don't know. God damn it, they have such an easy schedule too. Oh no, their week 1 sucks. All right, yeah, no, Seoul's not going 6-1.
Yeah, their week 1 is really hard.
Yeah, and week 2 they play the Valiant, which is no cakewalk, and then week 4 they play Shanghai again, and the Fusion. That's a rough schedule. You sure they can go 6-1?
The Dynasty? No.
Yeah. Okay, then that means the Spark are in. If they win 4 games.
I don't know.
Spark
we'll
are
see.
in the top 6.
I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'll have you do your. I'll send you a link and I'll have you do your top 12.
Okay.
And I want to see how differential ours are.
Okay.
But anyways, let's move into our main discussion, which is basically all of the stuff that's been going down on the PTR since our last show. So first off, we got Roll Q that was announced on Thursday this past week. So basically, Roll Q is looking to create an environment that fosters teamwork as well as help ensure that the matches are fair and fun. So looking at this, when you're going into the game, you can choose which role that you want to play, whether it's tank, support, or damage, and you're doing that before a match begins. So the matchmaking system will then match 2 from each role to create a team, and you are able to queue for multiple roles as well. And at the end of the match, basically, it will return you to the main menu, and you'll be able to select your role again before you queue for another game. Now, basically, like, let's say you queue as, like, DPS and support. When it brings you back to that menu, it will still have those 2 selected, but you just have to, click ready at that point for you to queue for those. Now, how this would work is each role is going to have its own queue. So each one will have an estimated wait time that will be shown on screen. And let's say there is a role that's in high demand. Like, let's say there's not a lot of supports queuing up. If you queue as a support, in that case, you will have some incentive. I think the max you can get is like 1 loot box for queuing for the game. So you get a little incentive to do that. Probably won't see anything beyond that, though, I would imagine. And let's say, like, tie in some sort of, like, achievement, like, to, like, fill in a high-demand role for, like, 25 matches or something like that. Who knows? They haven't mentioned anything of that regard, though, so I would not expect it. But what's interesting about this is not only are we getting a role queue for competitive, it's actually going to be coming to quick play as well. So I know a lot of the talk about Overwatch in the past has been, well, quick play doesn't really prepare you for competitive. So I feel like having role queue in both is definitely going to make that transition a little bit easier moving forward. And then we'll kind of have, like, the quick play classic, so to speak, come into arcade mode with this as well. Now, Ed, I know, we've done a couple of placements on PTR. I know I finished all of my roles in that particular. But basically, the way that this works is you can do placements on all roles, and you only need to do 5 placement matches in order to get your skill rating. So if you want to just queue as, support, and you do your 5, then you're basically stuck to playing support in that case, unless you do your other placements. But what's interesting about this is the fact that, for one, it's basically going to pick your highest skill rating in regards to the end-of-season rewards, but if you do placements on each role, you're going to have more rewards coming your way, so you'll have more competitive points at the end of the season, as opposed to you just sticking to one primarily. So there is that as well. Then, of course, they're doing leaderboards based on each role. They'll also have one that's like a flex one that combines all 3. But looking at this, it's on the PTO right now, and it's going to go live with patch 1.39. And that's when we'll have the Roll Queue beta season for competitive, which is why we had the current season, Season 17, having a shortened duration. So we're looking at having Roll Queue fully available for quick play and competitive play starting September 1st. And that would be like the new start of the competitive season at that point. Now looking at the system, though, what have your experiences been so far with the Roll Queue system in place on PTR?
I love it. I love to Roadlock. It leaves a lot of the worrisome. Like, you would go into matches now on live, and you'd be like, okay, they're gonna choose 3 snipers, D.Va as our only tank, and Zenyatta will be our only healer. Like, and you just be like, well, we're gonna lose. And you just have to hope the other team has just as bad as comp picks as you, for you to have a shot. Now, this takes that all out of it. Like, when we were playing, like, me, you, and Spider teamed up and played Monday, and I got my support matches done, and went very smooth. It was like, okay, now I just have to be like, what support am I gonna play to, work with my other support? Like, what supports are gonna be the best complementing each other? And that's 10 times easier to do than being like, okay, well, you 3 went DPS, now we need to have a main tank, and then do we want to have 2 support, or do we want to have 2 tanks and 1 support? Like, how are we going to do this? And then the person who has to be one of the tanks, the last person to pick, just leaves game, the other person comes in, and then they generally end up picking Symmetra, Torbjorn, or Widowmaker, whichever one is available. Get rid of all of that, and you have a more fun experience, a less toxic experience, except for that one match. That's not a good and it just makes the game more fun, not having to worry about my comp is going to suck against their comp. It comes down to, are our players better than their players, which is how it should be. Like, is our DPS line better than their DPS line, so on and so forth. And it allows you to play at each. I think the biggest thing for me is, yes, I am not as good of a DPS player as I am a support or a tank player. I know this, but that doesn't mean I like playing DPS any less. So I can't go into competitive and play DPS with my current SR because I know I'm not going to be playing well and not going to be living up to whatever those standards. And this is just kind of goes for everyone, whether everyone has their strongest class and their 2 weaker ones. This allows you to actually be like, hey, I know I'm a support main, but screw heal. I want to click heads. And
then you pick Zenyatta.
But, like, I want to click heads. I want to play DPS on comp. Well, you can now go in with your SR rating just for DPS and be like, I'm among my other shitty peers. Like, you're like, oh, this is like home. You know, it's one of those things where you can go in comfortably now and be like, okay, everyone around me is at the same SR for the positions they're playing, and this is going to be the most fair matchup possible. And that is what I like the most about this. Is it makes the matches more fair, which in turn is more fun. Are all the bugs worked out of it? Not by a long shot. I mean, we had problems queuing up.
Yeah, there were games when like I would want to like select like tank, and it would just be completely grayed out for really no reason. Or like, well, I guess I can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. You're just like, and then all we would do is we'd exit the screen, go back, and it would be okay. Like, wait, what?
Yeah, or the issue would be with someone else at that point.
Yeah, it's so stuff like that. Yes, that needs to get worked out. I also, this was brought up on when I was watching Tim the Tatman play, who placed at platinum DPS, and it was hilarious. He's like, if somebody leaves a competitive match, it will not allow somebody to switch. Like let's say you're down to one tank. It won't let one of your support switch over to tank. I don't know how they can fix it. Allowing somebody to switch like that, they probably just can't. Which I'm fine with, but like it's little things like that need to be addressed, and which we'll get through on PTR, and then when it's in the beta, like the matchmaking right now on the PTR is crap. Like, don't take any of the ratings that you get on the PTR serious. Like, we played against people who were far and away better than us. Like, far and away better.
Yeah, like we had a game that our teammates were between silver and plat.
So like, that's not going to happen in a normal, like on the live servers. So, and I think there was one match where we were playing a Hanzo who was high plats. Like on when I think Spider looked at him or something like that, well above where we were at. And you're doing that in your placement matches. It's just, don't take them with a grain of salt. Just get the experience. Don't think about the number itself. Because, like, I mean, for instance, I placed at 1990, and then we lost one match. I dropped to 1900. So I lost 90 SR. I don't know if that's right. So don't read into the numbers, but it's gonna be funny. You're seeing this, like, even in chat right now. Kesha listed like 1989, 2389, 1858, you know, and her highest is DPS, and she's mainly playing support. So you're gonna get these anomalies where it's just like, what's going on here?
Yeah, like, so for instance, I will admit, Edinar plays higher on support than I did by like 28 SR, and I know that's not right.
Hey. Hey.
Yeah, but for my placements, I had tank as my highest. I don't have the exact values offhand. I think it was like 2500-ish. So I had tank as the highest, DPS was my second highest, which was about 200 lower than my tank. And then my support was like 19, like a little bit below where you would place on yours. It was all over the place, which is weird, because like I haven't really played DPS for like 7 or 8 competitive seasons at this point, because I've primarily been focusing lately on learning to main tank for the past several seasons. And then before that, I was typically, you know, playing off tank or flex support. But I will say, like, when I did my placement matches on support, I know I did not play well. I was not sticking to comfort picks at all. I was primarily playing either Moira, which I felt I did above average on, and then I was playing Lucio, and we did not win a single game when I did my placement matches, and a lot of that was just the quality of games were really unbalanced in my support placements. The best game that I had was actually on a Route 66, where I was actually playing with a couple of listeners, one on my team and one on the enemy team. One of which was one of the guys that won our most recent featured league for OWL by the numbers, which small world on that front. But the most balanced game that I had was one where we had a lever on both teams. Both when someone was on attack. And that was the closest game that we had out of those 5 matches. It was the most balanced one. Everything else was complete steamroll. Like, the attacker, like, my enemy team would attack with, like, 3.5 minutes plus in the time bank, and my team wasn't able to complete the map. It was just so bad. And honestly, like, I did not feel good after that. Like, I didn't really feel like doing my other placements on PTR. But I did do that. And the other quality of games that I did have were actually pretty good across the board. So I would say on average, the overall experience with roll queue on PTR was positive, but there is a lot of funky stuff going on with who you're getting paired with, and a lot of that just boils down to the fact that when it comes to something like this, you're on a PTR, testing a new feature when there's not a lot of players in the player pool. So that's definitely going to impact the quality of games. So for me to just have a positive experience for the majority of the games is a really good sign.
Yeah, and I kind of was lucky. I had a 10 times better experience, I think, than normal, playing with you and Spider.
Yeah, so we basically queued one for each role.
One for each role, and you know what? Like, obviously, Spider's the best out of the 3 of us.
Mm-hmm.
You're better than me, and I'm at the bottom. But at least we know, like, we can at least trust the other person, the other 2 people, to at least know something.
Yeah, and we know that we're trying.
Yeah, like, you know, and, you know, we know each other's playstyle a little bit more. And that was very beneficial. So I had actually a very positive experience playing, but it was because I was with you too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see how it goes when I do it solo. I do have an account that I have kept 100% fresh from any placements whatsoever, and I want to do my placements on that and see how it goes for each category and see how I do once it goes live.
Mm-hmm.
That will be a very interesting test for me, but it just, the fact that it's a quick play too is just one of those things where I'm like, you know what, good, that's awesome.
Yeah, that means, like, when I'm supporting, I don't have to be the only support and then have to deal with 4 DPS comps every game.
Yeah, like, people go to quick play to what a lot of people say, practice. You know, well, you can't practice when everyone's like, insta-lock, 3 snipers in a bastion. Crap on a cracker.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they have to do that. If you want to do that, go to arcade. I think putting classic quick play in arcade, it's arguably one of the best things about this patch out of the 2-2-2 roll lock, because now we can go when we need to do our, you know, arcade loot boxes, we can just do quick play instead of always having to do arcade. Now arcade is still fun, but if we just want to do quick play, we can do that to get arcade loot boxes, which is also kind of nice. So yeah, so many changes. Like, I think anyone who is really, truly skeptical of the 2-2-2 roll lock will have their minds changed once they see it live and how much better the actual games are.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm excited.
So,
very excited.
Not only did we get the roll queue with this patch, we also had a sweep of balance updates. Now, I know Kaplan had stated that, like, they didn't want to overdo it. So there's some heroes that we're going to talk about that maybe you're a little bit surprised by or on the list. Maybe some that you're surprised aren't on the list. But first off, it is worth noting that they increased the global ultimate cost across the board by 12%. They also separated friendly and enemy slowing effects. So basically, like, if there's a movement speed, it'll go based on whichever is slower for the reduction in that regard. But in regards to balance updates, Brigitte definitely got the most work, so I feel like we should probably save her for last. So for Ashe, we got the reload time per round decreased by from 0.3 seconds to 0.25 seconds.
Doesn't seem like much, but makes Ashe so much smoother to play.
Right.
Like, me and Spider were talking about this. Like, Ashe feels 10 times better because of this. This just one simple change. Ashe is 10 times better.
So we also had the Doomfist Quick Melee no longer pausing ammo reload. You got the Hanzo Storm Arrow ammo being reduced from 6 to 5. Now, this is an interesting one to me, because if we're expecting Bunker, Storm Arrow is pretty damn good at breaking shields, so this was kind of an interesting change to me.
Yeah, it was. It's one of those things where dive is also quite a good way of breaking up bunker comps. I don't know if you want it to be too powerful against a specific comp like that. So they nerfed it a little. It was, I mean, let's be real. Storm Arrow was pretty powerful.
It was burst intensive.
Yeah, like you're taking, if you're 1v1ing someone and you do this and you hit 3 of your shots, you win.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where I'm totally fine with that change. But it was one of the more reliable ways to take down a shield. So who knows why they truly did it, but they probably saw something where it was a little bit too powerful with the new meta and needed to change it.
I am going to save the most controversial change for last, which revolves around Moira. So looking at Orisa, the protective barrier cooldown was increased from 8 seconds to 9 seconds. And I feel like this is more in line to try to keep her more even with the new hero, but I don't see Orisa's playtime shifting.
No.
With this
isn't
change.
This isn't gonna knock Orisa off the new meta that's coming out. It will take, unless you focus fire all 6 players on the shield at once, you're not taking down an Orisa shield in under 6-7 seconds. So whether you have to wait 1 to 2 seconds, not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, it's a slight nerf.
Yeah, we also have Reinhardt get a new passive, which is probably too little too late at this point in the new meta. But the new passive is called Steadfast. It reduces knockback effects by 30%.
I mean, here's the thing. 1, yes, too little too late. 2, we're going into a meta where it does not appear Reinhardt is going to be the main tank.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone's kind of under the assumption the main tanks are going to be Winston or Orisa. And Reinhardt's probably going to be the odd man left out, which totally fine. But man, would people have loved this during GOATS?
Mm-hmm.
So
would have felt better not being a pinball.
Right? Being like, hey, I got knocked back by literally everything. So, like you said, too little too late, but nice that they actually put it in the game for in the future.
Yeah, for me, it's just less displacement when you're facing like Wrecking Ball, Pharah, Lucio, primarily.
Yeah, and Doomfist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Sigma. No, Sigma's not really an issue. I wouldn't imagine for his knockback.
Well, we'll have more on him later.
Yes.
So we have.
They're like, who's Sigma? Really?
It's a mystery, according to Jeff, and by mystery he means not a mystery.
Yeah, that lasted a whole 3
Nope.
days of mystery.
Yeah. But anyways, back to the balance updates. We have Sombra hack duration being reduced from 6 seconds to 5 seconds. So I know Super is going to be really happy about this, knowing that he won't be hacked as long. And they also increase the activation time for EMP from 0.5 seconds to 0.65 seconds. So, Sombra, very good in triple DPS. I feel like her viability in duo DPS is still going to be good, but there's still going to be a fall-off there, and I feel like this is definitely going to keep her more in line with some of the other DPS, but I don't think this is going to rule out the Doombra compositions that we could see with 222.
No, I don't think it will either. Sombra is also obviously a good character to break up bunker. Nothing can take down a shield quicker than, I don't know, EMPs.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite good. So, you hit that, you dive on them, they're dead. So I don't think this is going to really affect her all that much. But it's nice. The duration of the enemy player's hack is definitely going to be something I'm quite happy about.
Now you'll feel
so frustrating.
You'll feel useless 1 second less per hack.
See, the less I feel useless, the better.
And it's just gonna feel better to play against at this point if you are facing a Sombra who is usually kind of like the doom and gloom character in Overwatch lately. So there is that. But looking at Symmetra, they had a lot of changes primarily to teleport. So the teleporter will now last in an infinite duration until it's destroyed. Players are able to destroy the teleport with the ability to input. The cooldown starts when the teleporter is destroyed, but they also increase the cooldown from 12 seconds to 15 seconds.
Let me just chime in. That was actually reverted.
Which one?
It is now back down to 12 seconds.
Okay, so the cooldown remains the same.
Yeah, because they had a very minor patch update today.
Okay.
Where the cooldown of the teleporter was decreased from 15 seconds to 12 seconds, and the teleport reuse time decreased from 1.5 seconds to 1 second.
So that was reverted to?
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. All right.
Yeah, there are two other changes I'll bring up, but...
Imagine that, guys. They're actually changing stuff while it's still on the PTR. What Overwatch game is this?
I don't know. Crazy.
But anyway, so the max range for teleporter was increased from 25 meters to 30 meters, and then if the entrance is more than 40 meters from the exit, the teleporter will break. So you already corrected on the reuse time, so that's saying at 1 second. But really, like, when I was looking at this, I didn't quite know what to make of it. Like, Symmetra hasn't really been too viable. Like, I don't know where this is going to put her, because there are still a lot of times when people aren't utilizing the teleporter outside of, like, Symmetra using it to get to high ground, to, like, get to the high ground on, like, Paris, for example, to not deal with a choke, or just trying to get a cheeky turret play by throwing your turrets on it,
Yeah, it's just... They're all very minor changes to an ability that is not vital to Symmetra's play. Let's just put it. It's a nice niche, a nice thing that she brings to the group, but the rest of it, like, let's just be real, the rest of her kit isn't that great. And the teleporter is a very not necessary ability. Like you said, all it's used for is cheeky stuff.
Mm-hmm.
An ability that's just used for cheeky stuff is something that can easily be countered. So,
I mean, I feel
you
like...
get away with it once, and then you don't get away with it twice.
I feel like against shield tank, so she'll still always have a minor role, but it's hard to say how much viability she has with shield break when you're just relying on building your left-click energy. That being said, though, you do get it very quickly, but you're mostly doing the damage if you're just not noticed. And that's not always the easiest thing with someone like Symmetra.
Yeah, and the thing is, like you said, she's real good against shield tanks, but the only real shield tank that we're probably going to see is Orisa.
Yeah, and in this case, you'd be taking a lot more damage on entry,
you're not like, people are, Orisa can shoot through her shield at the Symmetra. Reinhardt couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, she'd be much more effective if it was a Reinhardt meta than an Orisa meta. So, unfortunately, Symmetra still not. Womp womp.
Still gonna be good at the lower ranks, though.
Well, yeah, just because people don't know how to deal with her or the turrets.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'm also curious to see how much the friendly and enemy slowing effect is gonna have on turrets. I haven't really checked out the math on that to see if like the turret slow percentage is higher than some of these other ones in game. We'll have to look at that to see if that changes survivability or not. So outside of that, they also buffed Tracer's pulse bomb damage. So that's gone up from 300 to 350. Now that is not kind of... I don't think that's what it was initially. I don't think we're quite back to like the full revert. Yeah, so like it's going to be better. And it will give you a little bit more options to kill some other heroes in the game, which will be nice. But Tracer's not suddenly just going to become meta. But that being said, if we're not really seeing a ton of Brigitte, there's also a chance that Tracer's viability is going to go up the roof. But we'll have more on Brig here in just a bit. But it's a good change. Tracer's damage output will be higher, so we could see some bigger bomb combinations coming in for her.
Yeah, and this was kind of a direct... I think they mentioned it. They mentioned it in the developer comment. This is kind of a buff to counter Baguette. Because, like, this is meant to take out an ultimate that could one-shot people with Baguette's Realm. Outside of, like, I think Reaper, Bastion in turret form, and then tanks.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, with Rally Up, this will be able to one-shot people if it gets stuck, which it wasn't before. So, yeah, I don't know if we'll see her in the game, but I wouldn't mind it because Tracer's fun to have in the game. She's annoying.
It's weird saying like, yeah, she's fun to have in the game, also annoying. This is Overwatch. It's not how that works. You can't have one.
But no, like I'm talking more from an Overwatch League perspective. Like the annoying characters, are way more fun to watch in Overwatch League than any of the other ones. Like you're looking at Tracer, Pharah, super annoying, Mei, super annoying, Widowmaker, screw you. Whereas the ones that watching Reinhardt is not the most interesting thing in the world. Watching Zenyatta, not all that interesting. Watching Mercy, the most boring thing on the planet.
Can I just point out something?
God.
This is somewhat Sigma related. Everyone is like flipping out over the fact that he doesn't have shoes, but like no one says anything about like the Omnics not having shoes.
Well,
it's like they're barefoot too.
That's because the Omnics' feet aren't creepy as hell. Like the graphics on Sigma's feet.
Oh, okay, hold on. I hard disagree with one caveat. When they made Zenyatta walk.
Okay, but that's not in the game. That is not in the game. Creepy floaty dude. Like, yeah, no. They did a bad job of animating his feet.
But I mean, if you're not touching the ground, what difference does it make?
Still creepy.
Well,
but did you hear why they don't have shoes on him?
I did not know.
So they want to go with the escape from a mental institute feel. So in a lot of mental institutions, they don't allow you to wear shoes.
Because of the shoelaces.
Yes. So that's why they don't have them on there. Blizzard Watch, I don't know if you ever watched that, wrote an article today, like kind of blasting Blizzard for misrepresenting people with mental illnesses. I'm like, slow your roll. It's a crazed scientist from Overwatch that was abducted by the government and tortured and put in a mental institute.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saved by an undead Reaper.
and a blue girl.
Purple girl. Yeah. And a blue girl. And a woman who has orbs shooting out of her hands. Fictional characters. Fictional characters. So, alright. That's whatever.
Getting back to the balance update, guys. We have Wrecking Ball. They're looking primarily at his ultimate Minefield. So they increase the projectile speed from 10 to 13. So, is this another one that got changed?
It got changed today.
And
it didn't get reverted.
Okay.
It just got lowered.
Okay.
It went from 10 to 13, and then from 13 down to 12.
Okay. So either way, the Minefield is gonna see more spread when you put it up. Then they also reduce the Minefield activation time from 0.25 seconds to 0.1 seconds. So obviously, sounds exactly what it sounds like. So they're just going to become active pretty much immediately, rather than having that slightly less delay there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I mean, this is nice. You know, Wrecking Ball's ultimate, while in theory seems good, it's just a zoning tool.
Mm-hmm.
So this is allowing the ultimate to, zone more. That's really all it is. And yes, Kesha, you can still navigate between the mines. I would not recommend it, but you still technically can. But don't do it.
Right. Now, let's talk about the controversial change that happened with this balance update. And this has by far been the biggest upcry over anything in this patch. So it revolves around Moira. Specifically, her Fade ability. So Moira can now use Fade while stunned. Oh, man. I will say, like, I played a ton of Moira, and any time I hit Fade, the only thing I could think of was, this is stupid.
It's
the ultimate get out of jail card, essentially.
Yeah, because she can, alright, think of any ability in the game. She can get out of it. She can get out of a sleep dart.
Mm-hmm.
You're asleep. You're not fading away while you're slept. Plain and simple. No, just.
I mean, you might fade away into a deeper sleep.
Right? Oh my god, it's just, I play Moira, and I'm just like, this is stupid. The whole, Graviton, I think I got out of a couple Grav Surges when we played, and then I just throw a healing orb into the group that's still in there, and then heal them all up.
Mm-hmm.
I know she's not the first who can get out of specific abilities, but she can get out of all abilities.
Yeah, it's just the fact that when you compare this ability and what it negates to the field, as opposed to some of these other abilities that also have escapes, the list comparison is night and day differential.
Oh, yeah. Name a character who can, after being shattered, can get out of that. Oh, yeah, just Moira. That's right. Because you can't use abilities when you're shattered. Except Moira.
Well, it's a good thing Reinhardt's not seeing play.
Right? Can she bait out of Hook? That's one I didn't see.
I would not be
if
surprised.
she's being hooked, but I would assume she could. If she can get out of Sleep Dart, she can get out of being hooked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just, it's stupid. I can't defend this at all.
So if there was any time for a reversal based on community upcry, this would be the time that we'll probably see it. But who knows? Stranger things have happened in the world of Overwatch. Now, that being said, going into 222, there was one particular hero that we thought, like, would just outright not have a spot, and that would be Brigitte. Well, they did do a lot to Brigitte, and I'm not going to call it a rework, but there were a lot of balance changes to Brigitte. So for starters, looking at her passive Inspire, they increased the healing amount from 100 to 130, but the amount of self-healing that you get from your passive was cut in half. They made some tweaks to her repair kit, so now it has 3 charges, and because of that, they decreased the healing amount from 150 to 120, and rather than having it as an instant heal, it now heals over 2 seconds. Now, let's say you throw a pack at the same target, like back-to-back. When you throw the pack at the target, that will extend the current duration by 2 seconds. And then, with her whip shot, the outgoing velocity was increased from 60 to 80. The retracting time was reduced from 0.6 seconds to 0.3 seconds. And then we had, probably the thing that I'm total, like, I cannot justify this one. Her barrier shield health was reduced from 500 to 200. And that is a lot. Your shield honestly feels pretty useless. You're muted. You caught it. I know, I saw you caught it.
No, it's useless. Like, her shield is useless. Because the thing is you can't have the shield up anymore. Because if you have the shield up and it gets destroyed, then you have no bash.
Mm-hmm.
So the only time you're using shield now is to bash. So you take away a fundamental part of her by not really allowing her to have her shield up. So, like, the other change is fine. Her healing from her repair pack on paper is very good. In actuality, not that good. Because you're going to overheal like there's no tomorrow. So you're going to have so many wasted charges thrown out at people when it's pointless. You know, you're going to throw 2 out, and then it's going to heal a full health character over 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I'm not a huge fan of this. She's definitely an off support. You cannot use her as a main support as like you would a Moira, Lucio, Mercy. She is full on a flex support at this point, and probably not the best flex support. You know, with the barrier shield reduction, she can't really, you know, she can't be frontline anymore all that much. But she needs to be to get her flail done.
Right.
Like, so it's just one of those, and if you're running, especially in this meta, if we're running double sniper, she's not that good. Because all you have is your repair pack to heal any of your DPS players. And if it's dive, she's utterly useless, obviously. 100% can't dive. So even though these changes make her like playable in the lower ranks, she's still like now in 222. She's probably the bottom support player. Even though she got all these changes, to me she's still the bottom of the rank.
Yeah, she feels kind of awkward to play. Like, I do like the feeling of her repair pack with this kit. But the fact that they lowered her shield health by 300, I think they need to go to like 400 to get it back.
I would be happy with 300.
Mm-hmm.
Like a 300 health shield means it's like going up against like a Tracer versus a Reaper. You can kill, like, if a Tracer's standing still, you can kill her way easier than you can a Reaper. You know what I mean? So I think 300, it would be a nice compromise. I think 400 puts her back in the I'm a tank mode,
Mm-hmm.
type of situation. So I think 300 is the sweet spot where they should move it up to.
Yeah, and then they kind of double dip. So not only did they nerf the shield health by 300, well, they also reduced the shield bash stun duration from 0.9 seconds to 0.75 seconds.
I don't see that as being a big deal. Because you're not doing it you're not getting the stun kills like you used to. Like, you used to be able to, like, stun and kill them, like, 1 or 2 shots.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't been able to do that in a while because they've nerfed her previous. Because you used to be able to just stun in 1 shot Tracer. And they didn't want something like that. So
right.
I'm totally fine with this. What her shield bash is for stopping ultimates, stop harassing flankers, and, if coordinated enough, you stun, and then your team turns and kills the person that's stunned if the team works together. So I think it's a decent change. I'm fine with it. Less CC in the game, or less effective CC in the game, is always better.
Well, it's a good
Because
thing they
CC
added a hero with CC. Yeah.
Not really.
But it is. It's just a skill shot.
And it's CC from long range from a main tank.
Yeah.
If your main tank is long range and you get knocked over, not that big of a deal. Because the rest of the team isn't there yet.
But yeah, let's not jump the gun too much, because we did have one other change to Brigitte, to her rally, so her ultimate cost was increased by 10%, so it's another kind of feels bad. But I will say, like, on PTR, when it came to the ultimate charge, I didn't really notice a huge differential.
Yeah, so I was thinking, I'm like, man, they really nerfed her ultimate by what would be 22%, but the reason is she wasn't healing like she used to. So if they would have given her all these extra heals and not changed her ultimate separate,
right,
then she would have been getting her ultimate at crazy pace. So I get it. Now that I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. This just nerfs her ultimate to be in line with everyone else's. So, overall, good changes to make her playable, not that viable. Which I think everyone's okay with her not being everywhere. We hate her. I will say there's one other change that came in today.
Okay.
That we didn't go through, and this is not massive. They increased the ultimates by 12%. They decrease Baby D.Va ultimates by 12%. So they reverted Baby D.Va, like the time it takes for her to get her mech back.
Okay.
So that's just what they did today, as well as the other couple reverts that we talked about. But that was the only other change they had today.
Right, so not only do we have all of these balance updates on the PTR, we also have a new hero who may or may not have been leaked by one of the World Cup teams early. That, of course, was Sigma. So, going back, there was a Seagull stream at Blizzard HQ with Jeff Kaplan, and the Sigma chat was all over the place. And, Jeff Aisley is just saying, like, Sigma, who's that? Like, it's a mystery, but it's not really a mystery. And then sure enough, the Sigma release, the teases start to happen. So, we got a couple of glimpses of the backstory, then we got the origin story, and now we got the whole reveal. So this all happened in the course of the past week. So Hero 31 is Sigma, who is an eccentric astrophysicist who has discovered some dangerous secrets in regards to gravity. So as you mentioned, Talon has basically been controlling Sigma and his will after breaking him out of a research facility following an incident that left his mental state very fragile. So basically you have a character who has harnessed the power of a black hole So he is a tank hero. He's able to absorb damage, he can create barriers, and then he can alter the gravitational pull of the enemy team. Now, for the first look, they had Siegel at Blizzard HQ with Jeff Kaplan again, and they kind of like went over all the abilities. So for your primary weapon, you have the Hyper Spears, which are 2 spears that are both shot at once. These are able to bounce off of walls and floors. I think they only bounce 1 time, though. It's kind of like a short to mid-range weapon that does explode. So if you deal direct damage with both spears, it does 120 damage, and it has infinite ammo. Now I know there's a bug.
I will chime in. There is a bug.
Right.
That it is shooting 4 pellets.
Right.
Instead of 2.
You have to double-click.
Yeah, you have to double-click, so there is a way, if you're being like, oh my god, this hero's putting out so much damage, it's a bug.
Mm-hmm.
It will be fixed.
Because in actuality, it's really not.
His damage sucks.
I want to go over the kit before we go into first impressions. Because I'll be honest, I am not impressed so far, based on the testing that I have done. Now that being said, he does have the experimental barrier, which acts as a shield for not only himself, but allies as well. So this deploys with the right click. So it deploys a shield in front of Sigma. Now when you release right click, that shield will stop and remain in place. So it's kind of like the old Symmetra shield that you could like push forward. But that one didn't stop. So this one you're actually able to control, which is pretty unique on that front. So you are able to dismiss the shield at any time, and are able to recast it at will. Now, the barrier has 1500 health, and if you want to regain health on it, just like a Reinhardt shield, you have to retract it. So, you know, it's an interesting ability. I will note, like, there were a couple of games that I played Sigma with Reinhardt, where I would throw the experimental barrier in front, and then that would, like, shield the Reinhardt, who would, like, charge in, so there's a little bit of functionality there. But it's kind of like in between the Orisa barrier and the Reinhardt barrier, just from what I've played so far. Other abilities include Kinetic Grasp, where he uses gravity to pull in anything that crosses its path. So basically he casts a black hole in front of him that is able to absorb projectiles and turn that into shielding. Now, this has a very long cooldown. It's 14 seconds currently on the PTR, and you're able to absorb up to 400 damage and convert that into shields. He also has Accretion, which basically, like, he's able to, like, pull rocks out of the ground to create, like, a giant boulder, and you throw the boulder at the enemies, so it's able to knock enemies back depending on how far away from Sigma the rock is. And then it's basically like a projectile that rewards accuracy. So it basically like knocks down, and I think it knocks back too, depending on like how far away you are from the target, which is pretty cool. It definitely looks a lot better, like visually, as does like his ult. I really like the particle effects that we get to see from that. So his ultimate is Gravitic Flux, which is a disruption ultimate. So basically, you know, Sigma floats into the air, and you're able to place something on, like, the playing field, where he places a black hole that launches enemies into the air. Now, when that ultimate ends, it basically violently crashes the enemy team down, dealing damage equal to 50% of their max health. And there are a couple of things that you can do with this ult, which we'll talk about in our first impressions, but I want to like go back to like his origin story and how well crafted that was. So we got to see like the whole Talon breakout. We got to see kind of like what the black hole experimentation is kind of doing to his mental psyche, and it kind of had almost like this Venom-esque backstory in a sense that you hear like his dark persona kind of like talking to like this very fragile scientist, which is very unique. And of course it like ties into all of these melodies that he's hearing in his head as well. What did you think of the story that we got behind the man?
I mean, the story was pretty cool. You know, it's when I first saw that it was a tank, I'm like, what's the deal with super old tanks in this game?
Mm-hmm.
But Sigma's actually older than Reinhardt.
Yeah.
Random trivia fact. But it was creepy. It was like if you watch. All right, so whenever you first heard Ozzy Osbourne on record,
Mm-hmm.
and people are like, if you play it backwards, you do this. Well, if you actually played this, origin story backwards, you had weird, creepy stuff like "help me" or "save me" or
It was
stuff
Release
like,
Me.
"Release me."
Mm-hmm.
Like if you played it backwards, it just was creepy in a good way. Like this was a very well done origin story. Um, it wasn't clear right away if he was Talon, if what he was, but it does turn out he is Talon. Um, but he's just a crazy scientist.
Because we don't have one of those.
Yeah, like we don't. I mean, we have a crazy scientist monkey, crazy female scientist.
We also have a
support
crazy
player.
scientist skin for Junkrat.
Yeah, so we were missing an old crazy scientist white male.
Mm-hmm.
So we got that going for us. But yeah, it was a cool backstory. I will say that. Um, you know, I'm a little annoyed that we didn't get a cinematic, but I've given up hope that we really ever get those anymore. Because this would have been a good one rather than like the anime whatever origin story that they get a real. You release 3 heroes a year. At least you could do a 3-minute, 4-minute, like, well done animated origin story for each one of the 3 heroes you will release this year. But that's just me complaining that we don't get any more of those. Because, well, we need more of those. What did you think? How did you like it?
In regards to what the first
The
impression,
origin.
the origin story. I really liked the music, and that ties into like his like alt voice line as well. I'm trying to remember like what the exact translation was. I don't know if I kept it up or not. I don't think I did.
Also, I want to point out that he's Dutch.
Yes, he is
And
Dutch.
I am very, very disappointed in our Overwatch community for the lack of Austin Powers memes. I posted one, and if somebody plays Sigma in your game and they say something that you don't agree with, you are by our law required to say, "How about no, you crazy Dutch bastard?" You have to say it.
Mm-hmm.
In our law.
Is that the first
Freaking
law?
Dutch. No, second law. First one is when you say Havana, you have to say Havana Unana.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right. So it's unwritten then.
It's written.
Now it's written, but it wasn't.
But yeah, no, it's good backstory. Again, everyone just wants more.
Yeah, but we did get the Talon tank that we were expecting, and it was not Evil Maui. It was not manga, like a lot of people rushed out immediately. But who knows? We're not going to rule him out completely, but
Well,
we
they
don't know
did
yet.
say that he was in development.
Mm-hmm.
It was the kit when they came up with the kit, it just didn't fit his playstyle. So no idea why they didn't go with it, but they did.
Could be BlizzCon then.
Could be.
But anyways, let's talk about our first impressions on Sigma now that we've had a little bit more time to test him out on the P tier. And I will say, like, the fact that they put him on and a lot of people are just queuing competitive definitely had an impact on queue times. No surprise there. And I will say, as a tank, he seems kind of middling in the sense that I don't know how to classify him right now. Because I feel like as a main tank, he definitely lacks the map control. And then as an off tank, he just lacks the versatility that the other off tanks has. But his damage output was really the one thing that stood out in a bad way for me. It seemed really low, even if you don't count, like, I mean, I'm not counting the bug that's on the PTR, because, one, a lot of us didn't know about it yet, but he has a low damage output, and then the range is only 20 meters for his primary fire. So I'm expecting that to probably get raised probably by another 10 meters moving forward. But I will say, like, I do like the fact that, you know, there could be some creative uses for his deployable barrier. Like I mentioned, like with Reinhardt, being able to give Reinhardt kind of like a free charge on someone, which is pretty nice. And also with the accretion, something I didn't mention is the further the rock is thrown, the longer the stun duration is on that target, assuming you landed. So I want to say it was going upwards of like 3 or 4 seconds for the stun duration.
I think that is what it was at. I don't have the exact time, but yeah, it was right around there. But I don't know. That just doesn't seem like that effective of an ability to me. It seems like a weaker fire strike from a Reinhardt.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and it is projectile, so it does have fall off. You have to arc it. You have to do all that fun jazz, and do all that. And when you connect with it, it does 80 damage if it connects,
Which is pretty low.
because it's not like it's not avoidable.
Mm-hmm.
It's a giant black, like, rock flying at you, and it's not super quick. All you gotta do is sidestep it. It's basically, it's as easy to sidestep this as it is Reinhardt Fire Strike.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not I don't think one of his core abilities. Crazy good animations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not sold on it.
Yeah, the accretion does it does have the ability to knock Bastion out of his sentry form, but I mean, chances are Bastion's going to be behind a shield.
Yep.
So you're
Doesn't
not going to
go
really
through
get
shield.
that input there.
Yeah, it doesn't
now
go through shield, so it's
now
not a good ability.
Right. So that being said, though, like his ultimate is probably the best thing about his toolkit. It is very devastating. It's a really great anti-bunker tool, but probably the most important thing about the Gravitic Flux is the fact that you can basically force the enemy team off of a point. So you can purposely use this to cause the enemy team to C9 to close out a map.
Yeah, you can. It's like one of the ultimate zoning ultimates. You know, it's right up there with like a D.Va ultimate for zoning a specific area. But with this, it's very weird. It's like a combination of like Zarya Doomfist
Mm-hmm.
type of ability. Like, you can get out of it before it hits. Like, if you have movement abilities, you can get out of this ultimate. Just like a Doomfist. A Doomfist comes down, you have that giant red circle, and you have a couple seconds where you can get out if you have the movement ability. So, loses a little bit there. And you can use abilities when you're sucked up, but not really that effectively, because you're just discombobulated. I will say it's used probably best with another ultimate.
Right.
Like, the best I've seen is that and a D.Va Bomb.
Yeah, or Deadeye works really good with it too.
Yeah, Deadeye, Soldiers, Tactical Visor. Widows are going to have a field day with this because it's literally someone sitting in the air still. Pretty easy to take care of. The ultimate in itself will not kill you. Unless, like, if they just hit it and nobody attacks you while you're in midair, you'll fall and then you'll just lose half your health. That's all it will do. You'll just lose half your health. Now, it should be stated that you will lose half your total health.
Mm-hmm.
So if they take you down to half health, you will die when you hit the ground. Because you will lose half your... You lose the amount of half your health once you hit the ground. So you can die that way. It's a very interesting ultimate. I think it could be... like this ability might be his saving grace for viability. Maybe. On certain maps, it could really be it. Like on payload maps, I don't know if it's going to be that, like, as big as like a 2CP map or something like that. So, I don't know. It's fun. Great animations. You can fall off the map as Sigma when you use this. Be aware of that. Like, you fly while you're doing the ultimate, but you do have to come down. So don't use it near a ledge. Plain and simple. How'd you like what was your favorite part about the ultimate? Do you like using it for zoning or like comboing?
I mean, it feels better when you're comboing. But like it being a game-winning moment is probably the best thing though. But I will say though, like there were a couple of times when I was playing Sigma and the enemy team had a Baptiste, so they had the immortality field out. So in that situation, when you use your Graphitic Flux, yes, it does lift the enemies above the lamp, but when they're slammed down, they still land in a lamp and they won't die. So in that sort of situation, when you're going up against an enemy Baptiste, in order to get the kills, you need to make sure that you're killing them when they're suspended in the air. You're muted.
Dang it. That's actually quite genius. I never would have thought of that. Like it makes sense once you actually think about it, but like in the moment, I'm not like, oh no, I can't throw that out. They have lamp up. You know, like they'll just survive when they fall to the ground. So I wonder. We also have to test out: can Moira get out of this?
I don't know. I haven't played Moira against him.
I'm assuming yes.
Because you're just assuming that she can escape literally everything in the game.
Yeah, like there are certain interactions. Like I was watching Blizzard Watch was testing out like how Sigma interacts with like a lot of the abilities of heroes. So one they checked out was Symmetra. Like if you put a teleporter on the ground, and if you clicked and you fell, and then you spammed F, so you would go through the portal right away. You actually hit the ground first, and then you go through the portal, so you still take all the damage. So it's all about interactions. I don't like this character. Like, people are in love with him because he's the new hotness. But when it really comes down to it, is he actually good?
I mean,
like
my main issue isn't so much that. I do feel like he is undertuned right now. It's more the fact that he does feel more of a hybrid hero, because he does kind of like take from these other kits in the game. But at the end of the day, I just feel like when you compare him to like Orisa, for example, who like right now would be considered the primary main tank, you just don't have the amount of utility compared to Orisa, and a lot of that just comes down to the damage output at the end of the day. So they definitely need to work on that. And I do feel like in regards to the absorption, with the kinetic grasp, they need to either lower the cooldown or just kind of like change up his armor and hit points around a little bit to give him a little bit more survivability. Because right now, he does not feel that survivable, just due to the fact that you feel like you're constantly weighed in on that ability to come back up.
Yeah, and one thing that's crazy to me is that you can damage yourself with your main attack. Like, so you throw these things out and they explode, much like a Junkrat does. Junkrat does not take damage from his attacks. Yet Sigma does. That's something else they could change. You know, I think I was watching something and someone play it, and they were pointed out that like one of the biggest counters to Sigma, honestly, is Sombra. And what they said is like they classified Sigma as a main tank. Well, when you think of main tanks, you have, you know, Orisa, Reinhardt, and Winston. Winston can jump away, or they have the Tesla to interrupt Sombra from hacking. Reinhardt, he has to do is turn around with his shield up to stop the hack. Orisa can fortify, or it just has a spray of bullets that they can turn around and shoot. Sigma has nothing like that. Like, you can't swing around a shield because it takes too long to suck the shield in and then throw it back out. You hacked already. The orbs aren't quick enough. You have one shot to take out or hit the Sombra. And if Sombra's hacking you from behind, it's like hitting a 360 no scope or 180 no scope. Like, that's really what it is. You're just kind of turning around and firing and not really knowing what you're going to hit. So no movement abilities, no ways to really prevent a hack while it's happening. Sombra is a very good counter to this character. And then you also run into the ability, and I know, like Bob said, this isn't really an issue, maybe where he's at, but the majority of people play in the bottom half of Overwatch. When there's not as much communication, and I will say this, Sigma has the highest skill cap of any of the tanks, I think. Like, to truly master. But that shield is 100% the most vital thing. And you need to be very vocal and have a lot of great teamwork when it comes to the shield, because your team can be like, okay, I think the best example is, imagine you're all behind an Orisa shield, and the Orisa just turns and shoots the shield in a different direction without saying it to anyone. That's what Sigma is going to be doing all the time. Like, and you're not going to really realize it. You're just going to be like, crap, my shield's gone. And then you're dead. Because the other team's probably going to notice it before you notice it if there's not the communication. And as odd as this sounds, like, I like and I don't like the fact that the shield can go up and it can be like just a normal shield, because like you can have it pointed up to protect yourself from maybe a Pharah, but as a main tank, why are you protecting the high ground from like getting damage rained down on you when you should be protecting like on level characters? Like, your team's going to get killed if you're just like, I need to protect this from this Pharah. Let me throw this shield up in the air.
It's no different than Reinhardt doing the same thing.
It's a little different, because a Reinhardt shield, when he aims it up, still is not... It protects the upper half of the body. Still. Like, you're shooting it out there, and your team is 100% out in the open. The Reinhardt shield just kind of tilts like this, and they have to shoot under the shield. If you shoot the shield up in the air to protect from a Pharah or something like that, it's well off the ground, and your team can just get wiped away that way. Now, same thing can be said if you shoot the shield too far. someone on the high ground, like a Widow or a Hanzo, can be like, well, that's a pointless shield because I have high ground and I'm just shooting over the shield at everyone standing behind you. So it's like you said, I don't think Sigma's a main tank. I think he's a weird mixture of off tank and main tank.
It is worth noting too that with his shield, the recharge rate is actually lower than Reinhardt's. So you're not going to be able to get it back as quickly. And with his primary fire, I had better luck not going for directs. I had better luck trying to bounce it off of surfaces. So primarily I was like aiming at the feet to get the full effect out of that, and that seemed to work a little bit better.
Yeah, and the fact that that only has 20 yards.
It's really short.
It's like you're not doing any damage unless you're, face to face with the other team. So I think there needs to be some tuning to this character. Otherwise, I fear that Sigma's gonna fall into the we didn't do this right category.
Right. Well, he's gonna be on the PTR for probably 3 weeks at this point. So when are they expecting Sigma to launch? It kind of puts his launch date around August 12th. But he's not going to be available to be played in competitive until September 1st.
I like that. That's a good... I think the fact that he won't be in competitive till September, basically confirms what you said earlier about him not being in the playoffs. So...
Now, outside of that, during this Blizzard HQ stream with Siegel and Jeff Kaplan did tease that a little bit about future content, and he noted that the dev team is something exciting coming to us within a month or two from now. So that puts it early fall, late summer. Don't really know what that's going to be, but right now it seems like they are fully consumed by BlizzCon planning right now, but who knows what this next thing is going to be. Maybe this is going to be an animated short for the next thing. I don't know if it's going to be a new feature after we've had so much new stuff,
Yeah, they could be in the near future. It could be they just announced it at BlizzCon. Might be a bit far out there for him to be teasing this, but I know Bob had speculated maybe game goes free to play. I don't know if that's a new and exciting feature, though. A new and exciting thing, because honestly, the people who pay attention to Jeff already own the game. So we could care less if the game's free to play because we already own the game. So I don't know if it will be that, but it could be something, if it's just an animated short of 5 minutes, I'm gonna be a little pissed. But it could be a slew of things coming. People have speculated Overwatch 2. It could be, God, I don't even know. It could be something that they think is awesome that all of us are just yeah.
Or it'd be something completely out of the blue, like the Overwatch League picks.
Yeah, there's no reason to think that, any guesses are probably wrong. Doesn't stop us from trying to make those guesses.
It's Lego Overwatch.
That's possible. It wouldn't surprise me if they announced something crazy with workshop mode. Fan-made workshop modes in the arcade. That could be something like that.
Right, so. And, just speaking of workshop, I know they did add some new events, actions, and values of the workshop on the PTR on Tuesday. They also enabled roll queue for quick play on the PTR. They also kind of adjusted the end of match screen based on what role you were playing. They added endorsements to different game modes as well. So they added it to Mystery Heroes, No Limits, Deathmatch, Total Mayhem, Low Gravity. Basically, all of the PvE modes, whether it's Uprising, Retribution, Storm Rising. And then for Mystery Heroes, when you get on control maps, your heroes are actually reset between rounds. So if you get a really, really good comp, you're going to lose it now. So less snowball potential control, which I'm going to be excited to see. But, outside of that, Ed, I mean, that pretty much covered everything that's on the PTR now. So there's a lot of stuff to check out. I highly recommend, if you guys haven't yet, go update the PTR, go check out the new hero, let us know what you think of Sigma, and if not, let us know how your placements go on Roku.
Yep. Also, side note, another thing that came with the patch today, practice mode is disabled on the PTR as of today. So you cannot go into the practice range and play with Sigma. You have to start a custom game and go in. And the reason that is Sigma's ult and the ultimate and the bots were broken, and he was just killing them automatically. So don't go there thinking, I'll just hop in the practice range, check it out, because that's the first thing I always do.
So that's the only time Sigma felt OP. Was against training bots.
It's like, I can beat these training bots that aren't shooting at me.
Yeah, that shoot like every 12 seconds in 3 round 8-second bursts.
Yeah. It's like if I went up against Carpe.
Well, you wouldn't even get 3 shots, so like that's not a good comparison.
I could get 3 shots. I didn't say I would be aiming at him.
Oh, okay, so
running out of the spawn point, shoot 3 times, and be like victory.
To put this in retrospect, you would basically feel like a training bot.
Yeah. Essentially. Thank you for putting it that way.
Well, I mean, against Carpe, that's essentially what you would be.
You're not wrong. So I will agree with you.
Okay. And on that note, guys, I am feeling like it's time that we wrap up the show for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, the best thing to do is, of course, always go hop on iTunes, go send us a review. We're always looking for ways to improve the show. It gives us a little bit of insight on how we can make for a better listening experience for you guys. If you'd like to find additional Overwatch-related content, be sure to check out Overwatch Recall on our website. There you can find a podcast directory for Overwatch, Overwatch League, Path to Pro, Fantasy Overwatch League content, and that is at owlnshow.com/OWRecall. Then, of course, every Sunday we do the Weekly Recall, which has a listing of all of the prior week's episodes, which you find not only on our website, but also on our Discord and on the Overwatch Recall Twitter at OWRecall. Now, if you guys would like to support our podcast network, you can do so a couple of ways. If you are a Twitch Prime member, you can always throw us your Twitch Prime subs, which costs you absolutely nothing. We do always appreciate anyone that sends us Twitch bits or subscribes to our channel the regular way. We also have our Patreon page. There we have tiers starting at just $1 a month, and you can find more info at patreon.com/OWLnetwork. So you too can join the likes of our Master and Above patrons, Blazabob, Brandon, Josabal, Owl, and Kesha in helping our network grow. And Ed, of course.
I love how you just called her Kesha.
Oh, yeah? I mean, am I gonna mispronounce it every time?
Just gotta go with Kesha the entire time.
Yeah.
Just stick with it. Because it's going down.
I don't know if I can, in my heart of hearts, do that every time. I will try.
You better move. You better run. Sorry.
I thought you were going to continue with that, but I'm not
going to go with the spoken word Timber song.
Okay.
To end the show. Sorry.
So with that being said, Ed, of course, we have a number of different ways how everyone can get a hold of us. So why don't you go ahead and let them know how they can do that?
All right, so you can reach us through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We are on Twitter, and that's at hndoverwatch. We do have a website that you can come where we post all our shows, all our YouTube stuff, and that's at owlnshow.com. We are on YouTube at youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. We are on Discord, so come over there, chit-chat with us, learn all about our fantasy Overwatch stuff. Anytime we go live on stream, all that fun vajazzle at discord.me/OWLshow. We are on Twitch So twitch.tv/OWL show. So we are a Twitch affiliate, as Totem had said. Help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network of Moticon. So our podcast does stream pretty regularly. So Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific, we have the Overwatch League Network that Totem and Spider do. And then Tuesdays, we have our Fantasy Overwatch League show, OWL by the Numbers, at 6 p.m. Pacific, which me, Totem, Blazing Bob, and Ramses do together. And then Wednesdays, we have this show, Heroes Never Die, on at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then host streams, when available, run on a flex schedule, so make sure to follow us on Twitter or on Discord to know when we go live. We generally have been doing Mondays before Overwatch League Network and Thursday nights. I think we will be going on tomorrow night, Spider, for PTR shenanigans. So keep an eye out for that. We do have the Patreon, patreon.com/OWL Network. So come help support the show by signing up, and tiers just start at $1 per month, so anything helps. And you can follow me personally on Twitter at EdinarOverwatch and on Twitch at EdinarOW. Totem, where can they find you?
Well, I'm over on Twitter at TotallyDrunkCTR. And of course, if I'm live, I'll be on this channel. Now, in regards to Fantasy Overwatch League, I do want to note that this Sunday we do have our OWL by the Numbers Listener League on FantasyOWL.com, and the winner of that is going to get into the AM alternate jersey, kind of like, the one I'm wearing, you can get a Decay Gladiators alt jersey, so that will go to the top performer this Sunday, so I highly recommend everyone goes, registers on the site, get signed up. We do have a tweet out at OWL by the Numbers with the referral code, or you could just find it on the main site, pretty much near the top. Look for the Anna picture, and that will be our listener league. So definitely go check that out. If you have issues with the site, with verification, let us know. We'll get in touch with Chris. I do know there have been times when the email hasn't been sent, but he can manually approve the accounts as well. And I'll post the Discord link for that in the show notes, as well as on our Discord as well. But go register, sign up, prevent Ed from getting an alt jersey, all that good stuff.
You know what? I'm very excited to get my jersey.
And Ramses is not going to get to choose yours.
Yeah, Ramses will not be able to pick out what jersey I get.
And he also can't choose an Edinar jersey, because you can't customize them.
That should be the long-term goal for next season, the bet between me and Ramses. The other person has to get, he has to get a Spark jersey. No, because he actually, I have to find out what team he hates and make him get that jersey with my name on the back.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll get an Outlaw jersey with his name on the back.
Perfect.
That should be
That works. But anyways, guys, we're out for the night. Thank you again so much for hanging out with us on another episode of Heroes Never Die. This has been episode, I think, 170? Yeah, we're getting up there. Something like that, yeah, 170. I have been your host, Tumbling Drunk, joined, as always, by my co-host, Edinar, and we'll see you guys back tomorrow night for some PTR shenanery, when maybe we'll see the Edomaker come out and completely fail me.
It's possible.
All bets are up, guys.
We have to have two people queue as tank them. Because
Okay.
Spider wants. That's the other thing is if you're on the PTR and you queue as tank, you're getting a 15-minute queue time, and then the other person could just lock Sigma quicker than you. So.
Well, I would not put anyone through Sigma play on PTR. I can't.
That's why I confirmed with Spider before I agreed
Mm-hmm.
that he would be the one playing Sigma, not me.
Gotcha.
So.
But anyways, guys, take care. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night.
Have a good one.